everybody. I'm Andy Bozarth, Community Outreach Director for AARP Kansas. Welcome to the Coffee Chat. Today we have a great program for you. We have the Douglas County United Way. Excuse me for that. We have Jeffrey Cornish and Daniel Smith with us to talk about what they did when they won a challenge grant, an AARP funded challenge grant. So Jeffrey, can you, first off, welcome to both of you.
Thank you.
Can you tell me a little bit about what United Way is and what you do?
Sure. Well, we have a mission to fight poverty and improve lives. And we say by uniting Douglas County. And that's the convener in us, getting a lot of different groups, diverse groups together to help make decisions about improving our community. So we do this through a grant-making process that we have. We make grants to local nonprofit organizations that are providing direct services to residents. The second thing we do is we have a robust volunteer center. And this center really helps support both the local nonprofits and businesses in the area. And we also have a navigator program, and this is something new for us, but it helps to link residents to the human services they need in the community. So those are our three areas of action, if you will, that the United Way does to improve lives here in Douglas County.
Wow, it sounds like you guys stay very busy and offer wonderful services.
We do.
And the way that AARP and United Way of Douglas County got connected is that Douglas County applied in 2020 for an AARP funded challenge grant, and you received that grant. The AARP challenge grants are quick turnaround grants, relatively small in size, but they can be put to great use to help make a community livable for all ages. And I'm interested in what Douglas County United Way did with the grant monies that you received. I know that there were a couple different elements. There were the park benches, or the benches, and then you took that into the community and made that bigger. So can you give me a little bit of information on that?
Sure, yeah, I can definitely fill you in, and thanks for having us, Andy. So for us,
glad you're here.
You know, we did, even though it is a pretty quick turnaround, you know, we did quite a bit of research just into what building bus infrastructure really takes. I mean, I will admit that while the issue of bus stops is kind of a hot topic here in our community, which is partially what motivated us to apply for this grant, I personally had no idea what it took to build a bus stop. So looking at the amount that was available and the amount of infrastructure that was needed in the community, you know, we crunched the numbers, did some research, communicated with our local transit department to figure out like what was really achievable with this amount of money. And what we came to was, a very positive but relatively modest scope. Our original goal was to construct between 1 and 3 completely new bus shelters, between the fabrication of the elements and the pouring of the concrete and all of the complicated red tape that has to happen. It can be a pretty expensive process. So that really was the initial goal. In the initial grant application, 1 to 3 bus stops was the goal. And we managed to expand that quite a bit. And, I can go over all the details, the whole process. It kind of evolved as it went. But really, it ended up being much more than that, thanks in part to some collaborations we were able to bring in, and also just the willingness of our transit department to sort of make things a little bit easier. I think they kind of knew that doing this would help restore some of the reputation maybe they had lost over the years. So.
What do you mean that they had lost reputation over the years? Is there an issue with transportation in Lawrence?
Yes, that's kind of one of the unique things about this project. This, really was the first idea that came to us when we started talking about this, because, I don't know if everybody in the audience is familiar with Lawrence, Kansas, and even though we are the United Way of Douglas County, this project was just for Lawrence, which is the largest city in Douglas County where our offices are located. And Lawrence is a relatively a really nice community, lots of infrastructure for lots of different things, beautiful library, things like that. but our bus stops are kind of notoriously lackluster. And this has been something which has kind of been growing. That's a sentiment which has been growing over the past decade or so, as people have noticed more and more. I think certain parts of our population have grown. More bus ridership has been needed, and so more and more of these, what in my grant application I refer to as shame benches, have started to crop up, which are just kind of wildly inadequate and kind of embarrassing bus stops. And it got so bad, there's actually an Instagram account that was going out and cataloging these embarrassing bus stops locally that was getting pretty popular. So it was easily something that was needed, was noticeably needed, and is also something that was maybe a little bit past due as far as some action. So Cornish, my boss, everybody calls him Cornish. So Cornish mentioned a lot of the stuff that we do, and one of the other things we do is really just try and fill gaps that are seen in the community. And this just seemed like an obvious gap that somebody had to step up to the plate and take care of. It ended up being a pretty complicated thing, and actually, even though the transit department had kind of this negative reputation, I will say, and I say this to everybody, we applied for this grant and we've started to revamp some of the bus stop infrastructure. But having now met the people at the transit department, I do have faith that even though it might have happened a little bit slower, they were actually going to eventually get to some of these things. They're not completely negligent. They just have a lot more red tape than we do. So.
And I'm so glad that AARP could be a part of improving the infrastructure for your transportation and transit department. And do you have any photos or things that you can share with me?
Sure.
So that we can put that up there and everybody can see?
Yeah, so we can show off this is the report. Yeah, you can see it there. So this is the report that I made. I actually need to go in and update this. This is the report that I put together to share what we had done initially, and more has happened since then, and more is even still to come. It's an ongoing process. But this report sort of covers the entirety of the project from start to finish. So it does stop here with some really beautiful pictures of these shame benches, as I call them, which I think I said this in the grant application, that I think that these pictures, I can write 1,000 words, 2,000 words. I think these pictures are more convincing than anything I could actually write. When individuals in the community need that infrastructure so much that they take it upon themselves to provide it, even if it is just a folding chair, it's clear that there's sort of an inversion of the responsibility there, where the bus ridership shouldn't be supplying the seating. So these are just a handful of stops. There's quite a few more that are kind of in a similar state to this. And I will say that some of the ones that are specifically shown in this picture are still in a medium state of disrepair, but some of the ones that are shown here actually have actual real bus infrastructure now. So eventually I'll put together a full before and after for all of these things. And then in here, I talked a little bit about the original plan, and then the revised plan, which shows sort of a nice chart of all of these different bus stops and all of the ones. These are all bus stops that needed infrastructure renewal, and all of the ones that have our cute little United Way logo are ones that eventually were encompassed in the scope. So really, what we decided to do after communicating with the transit department and bringing in some collaborators was to have a wide array of bus stops that received some amount of either new infrastructure or repair. And so all of those are ones that are listed with our logo there. And then in addition to that, we also have 7 bus stops that received a nice aesthetic improvement. And then we also have 5 completely brand new bus shelters. So the scope really drastically increased from that initial 1 to 3 bus shelter goal to now having 5 actual bus shelters, plus the 7 that received the visual upgrade, plus all these ones that received some amount of improvement as well. And then I do also have this is a clip from our local paper about the project, which this is something which we've gotten a lot of feedback from, including from the local paper. the issue with our bus stops was not a secret. It is something that everybody talked about all the time. So as soon as there was news that somebody was actually going to do something about it, the paper was pretty eager to talk to us and document how the AARP Community Challenge Grant was going to sort of start to fix the issue. And then this is our first collaboration. I'll just go through the whole thing, and we can maybe take some questions, or if you feel free to interrupt me and ask questions if you have any point. But we did manage to have two community partnerships, which is something that I was really eager to be a part of this. And the first is a small nonprofit called Van Gogh, which is a jobs training program for youth with barriers to success. And so this is the visual component. So they had their apprentice artists who are between the ages of 14 and 20-ish. So we had them create these abstract patterns. The actual original patterns are pretty large. And then, so there's 7 of them. And then those decals have since been applied to existing or new bus infrastructure. And I actually do have some photos of the before and after of those. So this is purely cosmetic, but part of what we wanted to do with this project was not just enhance the infrastructure itself, but also restore the idea that the city and the community actually cares about our bus riders, that their experience is important, and that they can, use the bus system and feel dignified and cared for. So I have a few pictures here of the different some of the different bus stops that did receive the visual improvement, including this double bus stop, which is right across from our public library. And then the second, so here's some pictures of the youth working on the artwork. And then let's see, there's more. I forgot how much there is here. We'll keep going. So the second partnership is the actual physical new bus stops. And we have 5 of these, and they're completely handcrafted by the carpentry class at our local technical school. So these haven't actually gone in the ground yet because there's complicated stuff that has to happen for pouring new concrete. But we have some progress photos of these. So this was a full semester for the carpentry class. And we end up with 5 of these really nice, very homey looking little custom bus shelters, and they're all going to have a little golden plaque inside with the, mentioning the AARP Community Challenge Grant, and then also another plaque with the list of the students in the class who made them. And in this picture on the left here, you see these 2 individuals. The individual on the left is the head of the technical school, and then the individual on the right is actually the new head of our local transit department. So he came on board really right as this was getting started, and really embraced it, and did a ton to help us get where we are. So he's definitely a big part of it as well. And so for us, obviously this result is fantastic, but I think connecting these individuals is also a big part of it. So we're really excited with the possibility that both of these agencies, the job training program with the youth and the skill building program with the young adults, both of those programs, we think there's room for them to continue collaborating a bit with our local transit department. So I think this really is kind of the beginning of something that can continue into the future. And then here's a little map of all different locations where they are throughout the community. I think that's it. It's been a while since I looked at this. I do need to revamp it. And then we still have progress to go. So those wooden shelters are going to be placed in the ground sometime in the next few months. So
I am so impressed with your ability to collaborate and convene the entire community and so many different aspects of the community to make this grant into so much more than it originally stated. I mean, this is so much more than just 3 to 5 bus shelters, and it's all because of your ability to bring people together. I'm very impressed.
Thank you. And some of these collaborations were kind of things that they were dreams that people had tried to cultivate previously. The technical school, when they found out that we had them on our short list to reach out and try and foster some collaboration there. But when they found out that we got the Community Challenge Grant, when we announced it on our social media and everything, they literally called us up and said, we've been trying to get our students, in our technical programs involved in fixing some of this bus stop infrastructure for a while, again, because it is such an obvious hot button issue here in our community. So when they heard that we had established this link with the transit department, they were really eager to hop on board. And I know that, over the past at least multiple years, they had tried to kind of do something similar to this, and it had never really come to fruition. So it's really nice that everybody. It was not hard to convince anybody to come on board. Once people found out what we were doing, everybody was pretty excited to be involved in setting right what was seen as sort of an ongoing issue.
So for me, Andy, the important thing was that the AARP grant helped us to shine a spotlight on the lack of bus stop infrastructure, right? Something the community had wanted to address. And so we were able to raise the public interest, and most importantly, together with AARP, we were able to offer a solution, right? And it was the perfect public-private partnership working together with the government that was working to tackle an issue that, as you indicate in the grant, makes our city more livable for people of all ages. So it really fit beautifully with the intent, the spirit, as well as the goals of the grant. And we were able to address it through this project. So we're very grateful to AARP, and so is the city.
Yeah, and one of the things I'll add to that, just talking about addressing those specific populations, I was really impressed that our local transit department did a really good job of supplying us with tons and tons of data that they've collected about ridership. So looking at all the different locations where we have added new infrastructure, where these new bus stops are going, we looked over it was actually maybe the most difficult part of the whole process was just deciding the locations, because we have some locations in our community that are right next to we had basically two target demographics. We did want to engage with the older population who where mobility is more of an issue, and then also just lower income populations that are using the bus more in general. And so we had those two demographic groups, but then and so you might think, at least maybe I thought at the onset, that we could easily just see where their ridership was the highest, and it would be an easy choice. But we have some areas where there's a really high concentration of older individuals in our community, a really high concentration of lower income individuals. But then we also have some bus stops that have really, really, really high ridership, which might not necessarily be those same bus stops. So finding the ones that were high ridership, low infrastructure, but then also really targeting those specific groups. So it was interesting, and obviously we couldn't have done that if the city hadn't really provided us with tons of information about each bus stop and who was utilizing it. So
yes, great collaboration. We are getting some comments and questions from the audience. Let's see. One comment is, I love the new bus shelters and made by students. Fabulous. We have a question here. When will the new bus shelters be done?
So that is a great question, and that has been the biggest question hanging over this process for a while. The actual wooden bus shelters that you saw in the pictures, so obviously the shelters themselves are done, and they're actually, it's funny, if you go to the technical school where they were made, the school itself is actually a pretty big building. It's a pretty large kind of warehouse space, and they have these really big hallways. So currently they're actually throughout the building, and they're actually kind of being currently used by the students as like nice little resting spaces. But really the biggest roadblock for the whole process out of everything we've done with this has just been the red tape that the city has to go through to pour new concrete slabs. That was just the amount of time that takes is for them to they have to draw these technical drawings for the new slabs. They have to have different people bid. That has been by far the most not necessarily time consuming, but it's been the limiting factor as far as getting these actually in the ground. So I think I just spoke with somebody at the transit department. I guess it would have been day before yesterday. She came by and we touched base a little bit. So the concrete should be ready to go in the next 2 months, hopefully, fingers crossed. But for them, I mean, it has been enlightening working with them because, you know, for them, everything moves kind of at a snail's pace by necessity. So we've tried to be as patient as possible. But in the next 2 months, I think the actual physical large-scale wooden shelters should finally be in place. After which, I'm really eager to have a ribbon cutting. That's kind of the end goal, to have a ribbon cutting, have a representative of our state's, AARP, and obviously some of our staff there for that. And during the pandemic, talking about ribbon cutting seemed like a far off dream, but now it seems like it might actually be pretty close to being a reality. But yeah, I've got fingers crossed that, and I'm going to say 2 months. I think we'll actually see those start to go in.
That would be great. I have friends in Lawrence who are not excited about the way some of the bus shelters look today with, folding chairs. We have a couple of comments in the chat box. First one is United Way is doing great work. Good job.
Thank you.
And then we have somebody who likes your comment about government works at the pace of snails, and they're laughing. So again, for those of you just joining us, I'm Andy Bozarth, Community Outreach Director for AARP Kansas, and I'm joined by United Way of Douglas County Director Jeffrey Cornish and Daniel Smith. And we're talking about the new bus stops and the benches and artwork that is going in. One of the things, Daniel and Jeff, that you talked about was working with AARP in the grant process. And I know sometimes grants can be very cumbersome to work with the providers. And can you tell me a little bit about your experience?
Sure. Yeah. I can go ahead. So for us, since we're a grant, we also make grants that local agencies apply for. And so for us, like we're aware of how it is kind of on both sides of the coin. So we have agencies that we know how overstressed a lot of agencies are. And so we always want our reporting requirements and everything to be sufficient so that we are fully aware of what's going on. But we also don't want to overburden them to the point where, they're either hesitant to apply or it's, taking away precious staff time. So I will definitely say that as an agency that is well aware of all those issues, we really appreciate the fact that the Community Challenge Grant, it really is like a nimble opportunity. I think that the parameters as far as the application is concerned really allowed us to think, not necessarily come up with something that fit the grant, but literally actually just think of something that needed to be done. And the grant application was flexible enough that we were able to do the thing that was most desired in our community, not necessarily come up with something that was that fit the application. And then definitely as far as the whole process, there's been a lot of communication between us and especially some of the members of AARP in Kansas. But it has been really casual. It's been very transparent, lots of communication, which is always good. But it has been an easy burden to bear. I'll say that much. I don't know if you want to add anything else, Cornish, but it's been a very pleasant experience.
It has been a pleasant experience, and I think those the limited criteria has been important for us to be able to be innovative and flexible in the way we approach the grant. And we want to thank Judy Ballum and Maren Turner as well for their support, and really you for helping to set up this kind of exposure for the project as well. So I think a combination of leadership and the communications that were involved, as well as the parameters that surround the grant itself, all made this a very pleasant experience for us.
And we are so happy that we were able to work with you to bring these benches to fruition. As I said, I have friends in Lawrence who are not excited about the folding chairs at the bus stops, and so they're going to be thrilled to hear that 2 months is the time frame. And you are getting more love in the chat box. The United Way in our communities are indispensable. Great work, Jeffrey Cornish.
All right, great. Thank you so much. I'll relay that to the staff.
That's great. Sign of great leadership there. If there are any questions, please put those into the chat box. And if there's any, we're kind of coming up on our time here. So if you have anything that you'd like to say to the audience or anything that you want to talk about before we sign off, please, Jeffrey and Daniel, take a minute to share your wisdom.
Sure. I mean, the last thing I'll add, and then Jeffrey, you can have the final comment. Is one of the big upsides of this whole process that we haven't talked about too much is just the youth, both the younger individuals who did the artwork and also the older individuals who were fabricating the shelters. All of them. I mean, obviously, this was part of their job training, part of their skill building they're going through, but all of them put in like a noticeable additional effort into making this happen. Especially the students at the technical school, they actually finished their semester with about 10 hours left of work to do on the shelters, and they all came back after the semester was over to finish that last 10 hours of work because they just really wanted to see. They didn't want to see their project 99% done. They wanted to see 100% done. So that is a pretty exceptional story. And then it's also just been great seeing, especially some of the youth who did the artwork, which is already up in the community. They have been going out and finding their bus stop and taking selfies and stuff. And so like they are just very proud to see part of themselves reflected out in the community. So that's been a really great part of the process.
Thank you.
And I'll just say, both the county and the city of Lawrence has identified transportation and making transportation more accessible to the public as a major issue that we want to address. And this is one way that we've been able to tackle one aspect of that, making transportation more accessible by providing, safe shelters for people to wait for the bus. And also be able to have their groceries on board as well. So I think these two aspects about both fulfilling the goal of the grant as well as fulfilling the city's desire to make transport more accessible is something we were able to do with this.
Well, we are so excited that we were able to be a part of this process and a great success story. And thank you both for coming on and sharing. We'll talk to you again soon.
Thanks, Andy.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you.